Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of Deep True Crime. I'm Manny Rodriguez. Thank you for joining me. In today's episode, we're talking about the tragic case of Anna Moriah Wilson. All her friends, they call her Mo. Anna Wilson, she was an excellent bike rider, which really draws me to this story because I absolutely love riding bikes. Anna Moriah Wilson, she comes from a family of athletes. She was 25 years old when her life was taken way so soon from this world. She was an elite cyclist, and before her death, she was preparing for another race. She was coming off a series of racing wins this past spring, and this elite cyclist who goes by Mo was set to compete in a 157-mile race in Texas on May 14th of 2022. But days before this contest, the 25-year-old was shot and killed at a friend's home in Austin, Texas. U.S. Marshals are now on the hunt for the fugitive yoga teacher who is suspected of killing this elite cyclist. And we have all of the details that we're diving deep to share with you. And so Kaitlin Marie Armstrong, she is on the run. We're gonna dive deep into her. But our focus right now is Mo Wilson, taken way too soon from this selfish, jealous girl. Mo Wilson's family, they are mourning the loss of this beautiful daughter and sister, as they refer to her, as an excellent biker and skier. According to her family, they said Moriah was a talented, kind, and caring young woman. Her life was taken from her before she had the opportunity to achieve everything she dreamed of. She originally started as a skier turned cyclist. She transitioned to bicycling after her college years. And she was actually a star skier in her younger years, but recently she became more of a high-level cyclist. She particularly excelled at gravel racing, which is what she was preparing for. And this is relatively a new category of cycling. It's actually kind of in the middle of road biking with those very skinny tires to mountain biking kind of in between, where mountain biking has those big tires. So gravel racing, a gravel bike more has an in-between. Actually, as I said, I love riding. I have a mountain bike, I have a road bike. I'm actually leaning towards getting a gravel bike now because we live right next to the Katy Trail, which is all gravel. But I love being on my road bike, the mountain bike. So I really get her feeling on her passion for this riding. What's even more heartbreaking is the day before she died, there was an article in Velo News that was published about her. Let me share this with you guys. So the day before she died, Velo News, they doing a write-up on her and basically getting to know Mo. And this is basically a Q&A with Moriah Wilson. Again, it's Anna Moriah Wilson, but a lot of people refer to her as Mo. They refer to her as the winningest woman in the American off-road scene. Super amazing right there. I'll share with you some of the highlights of this article. And you can see right here it says, recently, we caught up by phone before Wilson jetted off to yet another high-mileage race, the 157-mile gravel locos in Texas on May 14th. And so they got to interview her right before this article, right before they published this article. And so here she was getting ready for this big race. And of course, you want to highlight some of these great athletes, right? They were highlighting this great athlete. And it's really a sad story, and I'm going to get into it even more. But I want to highlight the victim because this is about the victim and the selfish act of someone else taking this wonderful girl's life at the ripe young age of 25 years old. So much more life to live and give. So Mo Wilson, she's sharing in this interview, right? So Velo News asked her, you've been a high-level athlete for a long time. Can you tell us about your family history? And I'll just kind of run through a little bit. most shares, my dad was a professional ski racer. He was on the U.S. ski team and almost made it to the Olympics. My dad's family is a ski family, which explains why she started off in skiing. So make sure you check out that article. I'm not going to go through the whole thing there. So they did this article the day before she was killed. They published this article. And that's what makes this even sad as well, because obviously she was a very talented athlete and had so much time to give, teach, help other future athletes. I mean, taken way too soon. This race she was going to race in, Gravel Locals bike race, the day after the race, an event organizer remembered her on Facebook as a role model, a shy, compassionate person, a spirited, tactical racer, and a competitor that genuinely cared about those competing against you. And Wilson, she was even the captain of her high school soccer team. This girl had so much potential in where she was going with her whole life. She loved being an athlete. It was in her DNA. This is a part of her. After college, like I said, that's when she started going away from the skiing towards competitive biking, and look how great she did at that. And in her obituary, it states that she, growing up in the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont, she spent many hours on the Kingdom trails developing her skills and strength as a biker. After graduating from Dartmouth, Moriah shifted gears and continued to pursue her athletic dreams as an elite bike racer. And let me tell you what, I love biking, but I won't do any racing. That is hard as can be. Burning and burning and burning those legs and those lungs and that body at the highest part that your body can handle. That is some grueling stuff. I love being on the bike. I'll ride hill after hill, but I'm not trying to race. That's another level. So great job for this girl who was so determined to be successful at whatever she put her mind to. The obituary shared that outside of sports, she enjoyed cooking, writing, and traveling. It says, adding she especially loved Italy, Taco Tuesdays, maple creamies, and playing Catan with her friends. So that's a little of who she is, but let's dive a little deeper into what happened in this case. On May 11th, 2022, at approximately 9:56 p.m., this is Central Standard Time because this is in Texas, Austin Police Department officer Martin Salinas, he responded to a Czech welfare urgent call at 1708 Maple Avenue in Austin, Texas. Officer Salinas, he arrived on scene and located the caller, who was identified as Kaitlin Cash. And this was inside of the residence. She was performing CPR on a female subject who was later identified as Anna Moriah Wilson. Now, officers on scene, they reported that Wilson had multiple defects on her body that had the appearance of gunshot wounds. Officers observed multiple fired cartridge cases on the floor near Wilson, but a firearm was not immediately found. Wilson, she was pronounced dead at 10:10 p.m. Rest in peace, Anna Moriah Wilson, taken way too soon in this world. Kaitlin, she said that Anna was her friend who was a professional cyclist and she was visiting from San Francisco. And Kaitlin said that she picked up Wilson from the airport on May 10th of 2022, the day before. And Wilson had come to Austin for a bicycle race the coming weekend in Hico, Texas. On May 11th, Kaitlin said that she received a text from Anna Wilson stating that Wilson was going to go meet up with a friend named Colin to go swimming. Now, Kaitlin, she said that she left her residence around 5:30 to go meet with some friends and have dinner. She says that as she was leaving, she saw that Wilson's large bicycle travel bag was sitting next to the front door on the elevated porch. Kaitlin, looking out for Anna, tells her like, hey, put your bag on the inside so that no one steals your bag. And Cash, she goes out and eats with some friends, and then she returns to the residence and she observed the large bicycle travel bag at the bottom of the stairs, partially blocking the carport. She says that she went inside of her residence about 2 minutes before she called 911 and noticed that the front door to the residence was unlocked. Now, Kaitlin said that Wilson was observed lying on the floor covered in blood, and no one else was inside. She said that Wilson's specialized S-Works bicycle appeared to be stolen, but nothing else inside was missing. Officers then checked the area and they find her bicycle approximately 68 feet south of Kaitlin's residence, and the bike was concealed in thick bamboo. Kaitlin then tells police that Anna was gonna go swimming with Colin Strickland. She continues to say that Strickland lives in Austin, Texas, and he also is a professional cyclist who is sponsored by Red Bull. So of course, Austin police detectives, they were able to locate multiple photos from online open source media containing a subject named Colin Strickland, and he appeared to be a professional bicycle racer sponsored by Red Bull. He even had a state-issued Texas driver's license that had his current address on it in Austin, Texas. So of course they're going to go deeper, right? So Kaitlin speaks with Detective Spittler, and she explains that she has an electronic lock on the door to her residence that is unlocked by using a unique code. Kaitlin says that anytime this unique code is used, she receives a notification on her phone advising that the door had been unlocked. She explained the electronic lock has a lock button on the keypad that will also alert when the door is locked. So Kaitlin tells the police that she gave Anna Wilson a unique code for only her to use. So Kaitlin shows the notification that she received from the electronic lock to Detective Spittler, who observed that Kaitlin did receive a notification at 5:55 p.m. showing the door was locked, indicating Wilson left to go swimming with Colin. The next notification that Kaitlin had received was at 8:36, showing that Anna's unique code was used to unlock the door. So that would also share that this is the time that Wilson came. She was the only one with that number. Now, Detective Rolando Ramirez, he observed a surveillance camera that was mounted on the exterior of a residence near the crime scene. This residence is directly north of Cash's residence, and the camera faces a driveway next to Cash's residence. And so Detective Ramirez, he goes over there and he speaks to the homeowners, and they allow him to review the surveillance video. In this video, Detective Ramirez observed a dark colored SUV drive past the residence with the surveillance cameras at 8:37 p.m. This was 1 minute after Wilson entered Cash's residence. This is according to the locking mechanism that's given the time frame of all of this, right? This dark colored SUV then slowed down, appearing to come to a complete stop directly next to Cash's residence. The SUV appeared to have a large bicycle rack mounted on the trailer hitch of the vehicle, and a luggage rack mounted on the roof, and what appear to be chrome around the windows. No other vehicles were observed on the video surveillance passing by until marked emergency vehicles arrived on the scene. On May 12, 2022, officers assigned to the Lone Star Fugitive Task Force drove to the address that was listed on Colin Strickland's Texas driver's license, and when they get there, they observe a 2012 Jeep Cherokee that had Texas license plate on it with a large bicycle rack mounted on the trailer hitch of the vehicle. There was also a luggage rack that was mounted on the roof and a chrome around the windows that appeared to be the same vehicle observed on surveillance footage. And so Detective Spittler and Detective Jason Ayers, they responded to Colin Strickland's listed address and spoke with Colin. And when they got there, Detective Spittler, he notices that there are 3 vehicles in the driveway. All 3 vehicles had Texas license plates on it. There was a 2002 BMW motorcycle, there was a 1998 Mercedes, and there was a 2012 Jeep Grand Cherokee. Now, Colin, he voluntarily agreed to drive to the Austin Police Headquarters for a formal interview. At this moment, they're kind of thinking this guy might be the suspect. I mean, granted, at this early stage, everyone's a suspect until they know who it is, right? Until they get a really stronger suspect. But this vehicle that they believe they saw through that surveillance footage was at this vehicle. So right away, okay, we may be on to something, which they kind of were, really. And we'll get a little deeper, of course. Now, before the interview, Detective Spittler did tell Colin that he was free to leave at any time. And so Colin, he says that he currently lives with his girlfriend, Kaitlin Armstrong. And Strickland stated that he had been dating her for approximately 3 years, but briefly ended their relationship for 1 to 2 weeks in October of 2021. He says that during this breakup, he met the victim, Mo Wilson. Wilson and Strickland, they then had a romantic relationship before Strickland ultimately began dating Armstrong again. Now, I will say this is his statement. Truth is, it looks like he might have actually been cheating with Mo Wilson. And from some news, it looks like he might have a history of being that type of guy, that he may not have always been faithful. And it looks like this might have been the case, that he wasn't exactly faithful to Kaitlin and he went out on her with Mo Wilson. But so far, that is what it's looking like. Colin, he advised that while he and Wilson were dating, Armstrong called Wilson on the phone, telling Wilson she was the one who was dating Strickland. Now, Strickland, he tells Detective Spittler that he has had to change Wilson's name in his phone so Armstrong does not know who he is speaking to as they continue their relationship. See what I mean? He wasn't being a good guy here either. But again, who should die because of this? No one. Poor Mo did not need to be caught up in this dude's drama, okay? So sad that she got caught up on this. Who knows how much she actually knew? Because I can tell you, her family did release a statement saying that she's not in a relationship with anyone at the time that she had died. She was not in a relationship with Colin. They were doing whatever, but they weren't a thing. And so Strickland, he admits that he had to change her name in his phone because Armstrong had blocked Wilson's number in Strickland's phone. He even says that he had to delete text messages from Wilson on his phone so that Armstrong did not find them. Sounds like someone who's cheating. Literally sounds like someone who's cheating. And so Colin, he says he picked up Wilson on his motorcycle on the day of the murder, May 11th of 2022 at approximately 5:45 p.m. from Kaitlin Cash's residence, and then they went up to the City of Austin Deep Eddy Pool, which is located at 401 Deep Eddy Avenue in Austin, Texas, and they went swimming. And after going swimming, he and Wilson walked to Pool Burger that was located at 2315 Lake Austin Boulevard in Austin, Texas, to eat some food. Colin says after they ate, he drove Wilson back to Kaitlin's residence on his motorcycle and dropped her off. He says that when he arrives over there to Kaitlin's, he doesn't observe anyone nearby, and he noted that the garage door to the garage that was located under Cash's residence was closed. So there was no signs of anything going on that was weird or raising any red flags. And he advises that he did not go inside of the residence and he left promptly after dropping Wilson off. Colin then says he drove his motorcycle northbound through an alleyway until East Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. And he says then he stopped his motorcycle and he sends a text message to Kaitlin Armstrong at 8:36 p.m. And this is what the text message had stated. Hey, are you out? I went to drop some flowers for Allison at her son's house up north and my phone died. heading home unless you have another food suggestion. Notice he did not say, I was hanging out with Mo Wilson. He lies about that. So he lies about his whereabouts to Armstrong to hide that he was with Wilson throughout that evening. He said that he rode his motorcycle and he arrived home at about 8:43 p.m. Colin says that he then sent another text to Kaitlin Armstrong around this time, and he recalled being nearby his residence when he sent it. He says that he then goes into the garage and begins working on the bicycles to prepare for the upcoming Texas race. He says while he's in the garage, he sends Armstrong another text at 9:21 p.m. He says not long after he sent that message, Kaitlin arrives at the residence driving the 2012 Jeep Grand Cherokee with the large bicycle rack mounted on the trailer hitch of the vehicle, a luggage rack mounted on the roof, and chrome around the windows. And he says that Kaitlin is the only one inside that vehicle when she gets home. You know, and throughout the interview with the police, Colin is speaking extremely highly of Wilson and her accomplishments. He advised that Wilson was a professional cyclist and he was assisting her with obtaining new sponsors. He even referred to her as the best female cyclist in the US and possibly the world. Now, when talking about Kaitlin Armstrong, he referred to her as a participant at bicycle races while he is a racer. And he makes the comment that he told Kaitlin in the past she does not need to ride with him because she holds him back. And he advised that Armstrong normally feels as though he's grumpy while training because he has to wait on her due to her not being able to ride at a professional level. You can see some of the jealousy. Mo Wilson, she's a professional rider. She rides great, one of the best female riders in the country, maybe even the world. And here she is feeling like a sore thumb. She can't fit in. She feels like she can't fit into his lifestyle. She's not as good as Mo Wilson. You can see how some of this can lead to a jealous rage and lead to someone to snap. Why? You got to talk to the psychologist because I have no clue why this happens to a person. And so Detective Spittler, he asked Colin about the vehicles in the driveway and who owns them. He says that he owns a 2002 BMW motorcycle and he also owns the 1998 Mercedes. And he said that the other vehicle, the 2012 Jeep Grand Cherokee, that belongs to Kaitlin Armstrong. He says that he doesn't drive that Jeep, only Kaitlin drives that Jeep. Now, Colin, he admitted to purchasing 2 firearms sometime between December 2021 and January 2022. One for himself and one for Kaitlin. Now, he advised that he purchased a Springfield Armory handgun for himself and a Sig Sauer handgun for Kaitlin. And he tells Detective Spittler that Armstrong does not know where Wilson was staying and has never been to Kaitlin's residence before. And he says that he is unaware of Kaitlin knowing anyone in the area of where the murder occurred. And so while Detective Spittler was conducting the interview with Colin, Detective Ayers, along with members of the Austin Police Department TAC Intel Unit, they executed a residential search warrant which was issued by the Austin Travis County Municipal Court. And during the search, officers located 2 firearms in the residence as described by Colin Strickland. The firearms located, that was the Sig Sauer P365 9mm and a Springfield Arms EMP 9mm. So basically 2 9mm handguns. It was then discovered by officers of the Lone Star Fugitive Task Force that Kaitlin Armstrong already had an outstanding Class B warrant for her arrest. And so the Lone Star Fugitive Task Force, they located and apprehended Kaitlin Armstrong, and then she was transported to the Austin Police Department Homicide Unit office where Detective Katie Connor interviewed her. During the interview, it was relayed to Detective Connor that the Class B warrant was not valid and she would be free to leave. Detective Connor advised Kaitlin of the change and further advised her that she was free to leave and the door was open. And so Kaitlin, she was asked if she had heard what happened in the past 24 hours. She begins to nod her head and stated that Colin Strickland walked into the house and said one of the women in the cycling community had passed away. Now, Kaitlin, in this interview, she was very still and did not move at all as they spoke. Now, when she was confronted on how Colin Strickland was talking to this girl and Armstrong's name came up during the investigation, she continued to stay quiet and complete still. Now, when she's confronted with video evidence of her vehicle being in the area, she has no explanation as to why her vehicle was in the area, and she didn't make any denials surrounding the statements presented to her. Detective Connor then confronts her on how Strickland went out with Wilson and that Armstrong was upset about that. What does she do? She turns her head and rolls her eyes in an angry manner at the detective. She then stated, I'm certain as to even what you mean or what he said because I didn't have any idea that he saw or even went out with this girl as of recently. Now, when she was confronted about how Armstrong's vehicle was next to Kaitlin Cash's residence and how Strickland was saying certain things, Detective Connor explained she wanted her help to explain what actually happened and to help provide a logical explanation about why her vehicle was in the area. Detective Connor then stated, maybe you were upset and just in the area. Armstrong then began to nod in agreement. Detective Connor then confronted Kaitlin on how seeing her vehicle in the area, coupled with the statements made by Colin Strickland, made things not look good for her. Kaitlin then again nodded her head up and down as if in agreement. Kaitlin again made no effort to deny what was being said and still provided no explanation as to why her vehicle was in the area. Armstrong, she continued to remain very still and guarded as she spoke to Detective Connor. She then requested to leave, so the interview ended. On Friday, May 13th, Detective Spittler contacted Mo Wilson's friend, who was fully identified in Austin Police Department report and referred to by the pseudonym Jane. Jane provided information on the condition she would remain anonymous to prevent being targeted by Armstrong. Now, Jane advised that Wilson and Strickland have had multiple romantic relationships together and described it as a on-again, off-again relationship. She said that Wilson and Strickland's romantic relationship started during Wilson's first trip to Austin, Texas in the fall of 2021. Jane, she advised that Kaitlin Armstrong discovered Wilson's phone number and contacted her several times, causing Wilson to block Armstrong's phone number. Pseudonym Jane, she stated that Wilson told her within the past 2 months Armstrong began following Wilson on Instagram. Pseudonym Jane, she advised the last time Armstrong called Wilson, she told Wilson she was with Strickland and Wilson needed to stay away from him. On May 14th, 2022, an anonymous caller contacted the Austin Police Department to provide information regarding the incident. The caller refused to be identified but advised she was with Armstrong in January of 2022. The caller advised that Armstrong had just discovered Strickland was having a romantic relationship with Wilson, even though Armstrong and Strickland were still dating. The caller advised that Armstrong became furious and was shaking in anger. Armstrong told the caller that Armstrong was so angry, Armstrong wanted to kill Wilson. Armstrong then proceeded to tell the caller Armstrong had either recently purchased a firearm or was going to. An initial search of Mo Wilson's phone showed text messages regarding an event Wilson saw Strickland and Armstrong. The following is a message that Wilson sent to Strickland while at the event in January. Hey, so I would like to talk to you at some point. I had originally texted you on Friday, but appears my texts aren't going through again. This weekend was strange for me and I just want to know what's going on. If you just want to be friends, seems to be the case, then that's cool, but I'd like to talk about it because honestly my mind has been going circles and I don't know what to think. Strickland replies the following day. He says, "Hey Mo, I feel very shitty for putting you in a position where you don't feel comfortable. Kaitlin came along to go to a meeting about the Sprinter Spartan hotel project. In hindsight, this was not a good idea." And you look at that text message, it looks like Wilson thought they were in a relationship, in a romantic relationship together, even though he was dating Armstrong at that time. During Strickland's interview, he advised that he purchased a firearm for Armstrong around this time. And based off of the corroborating information discovered throughout the investigation, it would be reasonable to believe the anonymous caller is a credible witness. On May 15th, 2022, Detective Spittler, he was canvassing the neighborhood where the murder occurred in an attempt to locate more video surveillance. Now, while searching, he was approached by David Harris. Now, Harris, he owns that property that Kaitlin Cash resides at and rents the apartment above his detached garage to Kaitlin Cash. And he says that on May 11th, 2022, between 8:30 p.m. and 9:30 p.m., he walked into his garage and partially raised his garage door. He advised after doing so, he heard what he described as someone running down the stairs that lead to Cash's front door. Harris advised he believed he observed a bicycle traveling southbound through the alleyway from Cash's apartment. Now, throughout the investigation, detectives assigned to the Austin Police Department Homicide Unit and the Austin Police Department Aggravated Assault Unit and officers assigned to the APD, Austin Police Department, so I don't have to keep saying it, APD TAC and Tell Unit have collected various surveillance footage corroborating statements made by Strickland and showing Armstrong's vehicle in the area of the murder. And the following is a collaboration of the video timeline. At 8:16 p.m., Strickland and Wilson leave the parking lot of Pool Burger on Strickland's motorcycle. 8:26 p.m., Armstrong's vehicle drives northbound on Maple Avenue and then westbound on East 18th Street. 8:35 p.m., Colin Strickland drives northbound through the alleyway north of East 18th Street on his motorcycle. At 8:36 p.m., 1 minute after he pulls off, the unique code given only to Wilson is used to unlock Cash's door to her residence. 8:37 p.m., Kaitlin's vehicle appears to stop next to Kaitlin Cash's residence. At 8:48 p.m., Colin Strickland drives southbound in the 4900 block of South I-35 southbound frontage road. This is approximately 8 miles from Kaitlin Cash's residence. On May 17th, that Sig Sauer P365 9mm that belongs to Kaitlin Armstrong, which was recovered from Colin's residence, this was test fired using laboratory ammunition. And the fired test cartridge shell case from the Sig Sauer was entered into the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network, and the fired test cartridge case was compared microscopically to the shell cases located next to the body. And the NIBIN, what I said earlier, National Integrated Ballistic Information Network, what this showed was that there was a correlation review of the ballistic evidence and the potential that the same firearm was involved is significant. Colin's statements have been corroborated through video surveillance and physical evidence showing that he was telling the truth to the detectives. He cooperated with the investigation and has voluntarily provided statements to homicide detective. So Armstrong is the only person who resides with Strickland at the residence and has access to the Sig Sauer P365. Now, video surveillance, it shows Strickland leaving the area after dropping off Wilson and shows Armstrong vehicle arriving to Cash's residence where Wilson was staying. And Armstrong, she made prior statements expressing a desire to kill Wilson. And per anonymous tips that were reported to the APD homicide unit, Armstrong had deleted her social media accounts and has not been seen or heard from since this time either. Even Detective Spittler, the day after the murder, he was able to see that, hey, she has social media profiles, and then boom, later on found that it was actually now been deleted. So that is not a good sign for her as well. And so now U.S. Marshals Service, they're asking for the public's help in locating this Austin homicide suspect who is sought in this cyclist murder. They have issued a homicide warrant for Kaitlin Marie Armstrong. So if you've seen her, please report it. So if you have any tips about this, call 1-800-893-8477. And Kaitlin Marie Armstrong, now her father, Caitlin's father, of course, doesn't believe her. Doesn't believe that she's capable of doing this. He says, I know her, I know how she thinks, and I know what she believes, and I know that she just would not do something like this. I know that she did not do this. There are a lot of unanswered questions. Well, I'm gonna tell you this, my friend. She's not looking good. I'm sorry to break your heart. It ain't looking good for her right now. Why would she be on the run? Why? She should have easily had answers as to why her vehicle was around there. What was her vehicle doing there? So it's not looking good for her. Well, there you have it, my friends. The tragic case of Anna Moriah Wilson, also known as Mo, taken way too soon from another selfish act. Someone willing to lose their life basically over this jealousy. This stuff I wish didn't happen. My friends, be careful who you're trusting. This is my point. I'm sure that Colin didn't know she was gonna kill somebody. He helped buy the gun just to have one. It is Texas, I guess, right? So, well, rest in peace, Anna. My friends, there you have it. Let me know in the comments what you think about this case. It's a heartbreaking case, just like all these true crime stories, right? There you have it. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you have an amazing day. Peace.